Pay absolute attention to the footage on your screen right now. We are in a quiet, safe suburb of Columbus, Ohio. The date is March 12th. The time is 5:42 p.m. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the porch. A man walks into the frame. He is 55 years old. He is dressed in ordinary clothes, looking like any other resident of this street. He doesn't look like a threat. He looks like a neighbor you would wave to while getting your mail. But watch his body language. He doesn't knock. He doesn't ring the doorbell. He doesn't look around nervously like a criminal because, in his mind, he belongs here. He reaches for the door handle with a terrifying confidence. The door, which should be locked tight to protect the young woman inside, opens effortlessly under his hand. He steps inside. The door closes. That simple, silent motion is the beginning of a nightmare that will end in one of the most tragic discoveries this city has ever seen. Inside that house, 26-year-old Juliana Thorne is sitting on her sofa. She's wearing headphones, completely isolated in her own world, believing she is locked safely in her sanctuary. She doesn't hear the door open. She doesn't hear the footsteps behind her. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through a case of betrayal so deep it will make you question every person you have ever trusted with a spare key. You are going to see how a kind neighbor spent 7 months grooming a young woman for this exact moment, how he managed to fool her family for 7 days while holding her captive, and the heartbreaking mistake that finally revealed the truth too late. This isn't a story with a happy ending. This is an autopsy of a systemic failure. Most people watching this assume they know how this story plays out. You see a man entering a house uninvited, and you think, it's a robbery. Or maybe, he attacked her and ran away. Wrong. If you think this was a quick act of violence, you are underestimating the depravity of Oscar Miller. This was not a robbery. Nothing was stolen. And it wasn't quick. The most terrifying part of this case isn't what happened in the first 5 minutes. It's what happened in the next 168 hours. Because for a full week after Oscar walked through that door, Juliana's phone kept sending text messages. Her social media was active. The lights in her house went on and off at the correct times. To the outside world, Juliana was alive. But Juliana was already in a hell that Oscar had spent 20 years perfecting. The man didn't just break in to kill her. He broke in to replace her life with a simulation he controlled. And when the police finally broke down that door, they didn't find a rescue mission. They found a crime scene that had been active for 7 days. Who are the people in this tragedy? Let's meet them immediately, because understanding who they were makes the ending even more painful. The victim is Juliana Thorne, 26 years old, a talented graphic designer who had just moved to Columbus for a senior role at a marketing firm. She was the definition of independent. She was organized, ambitious, and careful. She called her mother in Pennsylvania every single night to debrief on her day. She chose this specific neighborhood because the statistics said it was the safest in the county. She installed a smart doorbell. She had deadbolts. She did everything right. She thought she had found a sanctuary where she could build her future. Then there is the predator, Oscar Miller, 55 years old, a widower who lived 3 doors down. To the neighborhood, Oscar was a pillar of the community. He was the man who fixed fences for free. He was the man who watered your plants when you went on vacation. He was soft-spoken, polite, and always available. When Juliana moved in, Oscar was the first to welcome her. He helped her carry boxes. He helped her assemble her furniture. He became her emergency contact on her lease forms because she didn't know anyone else in the city. Juliana told her mother, "I'm so lucky, Mom. My neighbor is like a grandfather to me." She didn't know that predators don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like the helpful man next door who just wants to make sure you're safe. Let's talk about the grooming phase, because this is where the true educational value of this story lies. Oscar Miller didn't steal access to her home. He manipulated Juliana into giving it to him. It started with small favors. A month after she moved in, Oscar knocked on her door to tell her she had left her car lights on. Juliana was grateful. A week later, he texted her to say he had moved a package from her porch to his garage so it wouldn't get stolen. "Just looking out for you," he said. Slowly, methodically, he built a debt of gratitude. He made himself indispensable. He played on her fear of being alone in a new city. He told her sad stories about his late wife to make himself seem vulnerable. He weaponized his own grief to lower her defenses. By the time Juliana handed him a spare key for emergencies 3 months later, she wasn't suspicious. She was relieved. She thought she was being smart. She thought she was building a safety net. She had no idea that the moment she handed him that small piece of metal, she was handing him the ownership of her life. Investigators later found that Oscar made a copy of that key immediately. He put the original back in her hands the next day, saying, "I don't want the responsibility, dear. You keep it. I'm always home if you need me." It was a masterstroke of psychological manipulation. He had the access, but he gave back the responsibility, making her trust him even more. He wanted her to feel like she was the one in control, even as he was plotting to take everything from her. Now, look at the footage again. 5:42 p.m. Oscar Miller stands at the door. He doesn't look around. He operates with the calm of a man who knows no one is watching. He reaches for the door. It opens. He steps inside. The door closes. That simple click of the latch is the loudest sound in the world if you know what comes next. Inside the house, the scene is peaceful. Juliana is on the sofa. She has her back to the door. She is wearing her headphones. She is likely listening to a podcast or music, decompressing after a long day. She is in her safe space. She doesn't hear the footsteps. Oscar doesn't rush. He stands in the entryway. He watches her. He is holding a heavy object in his hand, hidden from her view. He takes a moment to absorb the image of her. This is the moment he has fantasized about for 7 months. He is breathing the air in her house. He is standing on her rug. He is in control. Why didn't she turn around? Why didn't she sense him? Because Oscar Miller knew the floorboards of that house better than she did. Police found a diagram in his basement, a blueprint of Juliana's ground floor. He had marked the squeaky spots in red ink. He had practiced walking in that house while she was at work. Yes, you heard that right. This wasn't the first time Oscar had entered. He had been coming into her house for weeks. He would come in while she was at the office. He would sit on her chair. He would touch her things. He was escalating his intrusion, pushing the boundaries of his fantasy, getting closer and closer to the day he would stay. March 12th wasn't the beginning of the crime, it was the graduation. When Oscar finally moves toward the sofa, the camera view is blocked. But we know what happened because of the digital evidence. The Wi-Fi router was unplugged exactly 40 seconds after he entered. The house went dark digitally. But then, something strange happened. 2 hours later, the Wi-Fi came back on. And then, Juliana's phone sent a text to her mother. "Mom, I feel terrible. Throat is on fire. Think I have strep or laryngitis. Going to sleep. Love you." Her mother read it and felt a pang of sympathy. "Get some rest, honey. Text me tomorrow," she replied. She didn't know that the fingers typing that message belonged to the man who had just attacked her daughter. For the next 7 days, Oscar Miller lived a double life that is almost impossible to comprehend. By day, he was the helpful neighbor, waving at the mailman, watering his lawn. By night, he was inside Juliana's house. He slept in her guest bed. He ate the meal prep she had made. He watched her TV. And all the while, Juliana was in the basement. This is the part that is hardest to hear. Juliana's basement wasn't finished. It was a cold, concrete storage space. But Oscar had prepared a corner of it. He had installed soundproofing panels weeks earlier, telling Juliana he was helping her insulate the pipes. She had thanked him for it. In that soundproofed corner, Oscar kept Juliana bound. He didn't kill her immediately. He wanted to possess her. He wanted to play out a twisted domestic fantasy where he was the dominant figure. He brought her water. He lectured her about her life choices. He treated her like a rebellious child that needed to be corrected. The police found audio recordings on his phone of these sessions. They are too disturbing to describe in detail, but they show a man who had completely detached from reality. The neighbors noticed nothing. Why? Because Oscar was a chameleon. He knew Juliana's routine so well he could mimic it. He turned the living room lights on at 6 p.m. He turned them off at 11 p.m. He opened the blinds in the morning and closed them at dusk. He even moved her car from the driveway to the street and back again to make it look like she was coming and going. He created a ghost of Juliana that fooled the entire street. He successfully convinced the world that Juliana was alive, sick with laryngitis, and recovering at home. But there was one person he couldn't fool indefinitely: Juliana's mother. On the 5th day, the texts started to feel wrong. The laryngitis excuse was convenient, but the tone of the messages was off. They were too short. They lacked Juliana's specific warmth. On the morning of the 7th day, Juliana's mother decided to test her theory. She sent a text that read, "I was looking through old photos and found a picture of Mr. Barnaby. Remember him? You used to take that stuffed rabbit everywhere when you were 5. Do you still have him?" Oscar, holding Juliana's phone, read the text. He paused. He didn't want to seem like he didn't know. He wanted to keep the charade going. He typed back, "Of course I remember Mr. Barnaby. He was my favorite. I think he's in a box in the closet somewhere. Miss those days." When Juliana's mother read that reply, her blood ran cold. She dropped the phone. Mr. Barnaby never existed. It was a trap. A name she made up on the spot. Juliana would have replied, "Mom, what are you talking about? Who is Mr. Barnaby?" The person on the other end of the phone was an imposter. She called the Columbus police immediately. She didn't say, "My daughter is missing." She screamed, "Someone has my daughter's phone and she is in danger." The dispatcher heard the terror in her voice and dispatched a SWAT team for a welfare check with probable cause. When the police arrived, Oscar answered the door. He was wearing Juliana's bathrobe. Let that sink in. He was wearing her clothes. He looked the officers in the eye and said, "She's sleeping, officers. She's really sick. She can't talk." The audacity of evil. But the officers had the information from the mother. They didn't ask for permission. They pushed past him. They found the house immaculate, too clean. It smelled of bleach and chemical cleaners. They handcuffed Oscar immediately and began to search. They called out Juliana's name. Silence. They checked the bedrooms. Empty. They checked the bathroom. Empty. Then they found the hidden door to the basement behind a shelving unit Oscar had built. They broke it down. The air that rushed out smelled of damp earth and decay. They rushed down the stairs, guns drawn, hoping to find a hostage to save. But they were too late. They found Juliana in the soundproofed corner. She was gone. The coroner later estimated that she had passed away less than 6 hours before the police arrived. Her body had given out from the trauma and dehydration. Oscar Miller hadn't just held her captive. He had tortured her, physically and psychologically, until her heart simply stopped. He had killed her, and then gone back upstairs to answer her mother's text about a stuffed rabbit. The discovery of Juliana's body broke the hardened detectives who found her. But it was what they found next that turned this case into a national horror story. When they raided Oscar's own house 3 doors down, they realized Juliana wasn't an isolated incident. In Oscar's basement, they found a collection. Keys. Dozens of them. Each one tagged with an address. Some were for houses on this street. Some were for houses in neighborhoods across the city. Oscar Miller wasn't just obsessed with Juliana. He was a serial predator who had been operating in Columbus for 30 years. They found a box labeled Trophies. Inside were items that had gone missing from neighbors' homes over the years. A wedding ring, a diary, a baby monitor. But more chillingly, they found newspaper clippings of 3 cold cases, women who had disappeared or been found dead in their homes under mysterious circumstances in the 1990s and early 2000s. The police are now reopening those cases and DNA evidence is starting to link Oscar to crimes that had gone cold for decades. He wasn't just a creepy neighbor, he was a monster hiding in plain sight. The trial was short. Oscar Miller tried to plead insanity, claiming he loved them and was protecting them. But the jury saw the ledger. They saw the blueprints. They saw the text messages where he impersonated Juliana. This wasn't insanity. This was cold, calculated evil. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 200 years for the other crimes linked to him. He will die in a concrete box, alone, just like he forced Juliana to die. But that sentence doesn't bring Juliana back. Her mother gave a victim impact statement that silenced the courtroom. She said, "I keep waiting for the 8 p.m. call. I keep looking at my phone, hoping that the last text was just a bad dream. But it wasn't. I lost my daughter because she was polite. I lost her because she trusted a neighbor. I trapped her killer with a text message about a toy that didn't exist, but I would give anything to have been wrong." This story is a devastating wake-up call for every single person watching this video. We live in a society that tells us to be polite. We are taught to trust our neighbors, to help the elderly man next door, to be nice. But predators like Oscar Miller count on that politeness. They use our social contracts as weapons. They know we won't ask for the key back because it feels awkward. They know we won't accuse them of stealing because they are nice guys. I want to give you some actionable advice right now, advice that is written in the blood of Juliana Thorne. First, never, ever give a physical spare key to a neighbor. In 2026, there is no reason to do this. Install a smart lock with a keypad. If a neighbor needs to get in for an emergency, you can give them a temporary code over the phone and delete it the moment they leave. A code cannot be copied. A code leaves a digital log. A code keeps you in control. Second, establish a proof-of-life protocol with your family. Juliana's mother figured it out because she trusted her gut, but it was almost too late. Do you have a code word with your loved ones? A specific question that only you would know the answer to. If someone is texting from your phone claiming they can't talk because of laryngitis or a bad signal, your family needs to know how to verify it's really you. Talk to them today. Pick a word. It sounds paranoid, but paranoia is better than the alternative. Third, listen to your instincts. If a neighbor is too interested in your schedule, that is a red flag. If they are always coincidentally outside when you leave, that is a red flag. If things go missing in your house, do not assume you lost them. Change your locks immediately. And finally, we need to stop assuming that safe neighborhoods mean safe people. Evil doesn't always live in a dark alley. Sometimes it lives in a well-maintained house with a manicured lawn 3 doors down. Oscar Miller was a kind neighbor until the moment he wasn't. Juliana Thorne did everything right, and she still lost her life. We cannot save her, but we can learn from her tragedy. We can stop being so polite when our safety is on the line. We can protect our homes. We can protect each other. Thank you for watching Last Moments. Every story we tell is a tribute to a victim and a lesson for the living. If you found value in this investigation, please share this video. It might just save someone else's life. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous person you'll ever meet is the one holding the door open for you. We will see you in the next investigation.